Galactic Standard Date. Year 11356. Day 96. Sol Standard Date. 4th of the 8th, 3267. Letitia breathed a smile of relief as she watched the red area start to disappear from the tactical map. Between Sylvan, the humans, and her own people, the fighting was nearing its end. She stared at the videos portraying the human Spartans in battle and shook her head. She looked towards Jazago. They come down with weapons that we haven't used in over 10,000 years, and they show up billions of us. They sent squads of 7 to each affected city, and one where we could hardly stand the tide. Is it really just a technological difference? I mean, sure, their armor is vastly superior, and their weapons were superheated. But they still engage 20 to 30 foot tall monstrosities with melee weapons. I have trouble with seeing them as anything less than demigods. Jazago cupped his chin as he stared at the video of one Spartan leaping from the shield of another and landing atop an Azarian before stabbing down into his brain and throwing a shot from his spear. He turned back to Letitia. Perhaps these are their super soldiers. They fight like a well-oiled machine, so I find that highly unlikely. Letitia frowned. According to a conversation with Commander Litiki and Alamind, they are simply living out their lives, mimicking an ancient martial culture from their earlier civilization. Apparently every human is a veteran of the Imperial Marines, so perhaps this has some effect on them. If not, then I am terrified at the prospect that their regular people can perform feats like this. They seem utterly fearless after all. Jazago tapped Lakiti's icon on the tactical map and sent her a communications request. She answered the request with a scowl on her face as she sipped some wine. What do you need, Jazago? I am in the middle of something important, she said with a small amount of vitriol. He visibly winced at her tone and got on with it. Yes, so I was calling to see if I could interrogate the human that you brought to your mansion. Lakiti's eye twitched. That's why you called? I will let you speak to him after we are done sparring. Letitia moved into the camera view with a raised eyebrow. What do you mean by sparring? Why do you say it like that? Oh, she said, as she noticed the background in the camera view. You're in bed, sparring. After you finish, bring the human to the capital, please. She quickly ended the call and looked at Jazago, whose jaw was just hanging open. When they get here, keep your trap shut. Do not mention it. Please, for the love of the goddess, do not question her on the human's biology. Spare us from the embarrassment. Jazago sheepishly nodded and stiffly walked off. Sylvan was standing on a pile of Veil-scorched slag and Azarian ashes. He only had minor injuries from the few times the Azarians managed sneak attacks, but he was rather exhausted from overusing his powers. He stumbled through the city towards his old family home. He didn't hold out much hope, as it was in the suburbs, would have been one of the first places hit. He walked on through the streets sullenly. The adrenaline and battle lust have gone, and thoughts of a likely dead family took their spot. He finally made it to the street he grew up on. After about 15 minutes, he passed the destroyed remains of homes he'd known for over 50 years. Finally, he stepped in front of the home he spent his childhood in. The whole left side of the house was a mangled and torn wreck, but the right side was intact. He walked through a hole in the wall and stared at his old family photos. His mum and dad's picture had fallen to the floor, and the frame had shattered, so he picked up the photo as a keepsake and held it tight to his chest as he walked through what was left of the house. He walked the empty halls and saw all the old trophies on the wall from his and his siblings' time in school. After his trip down memory lane, he stood in front of his parents' bedroom for a solid hour before he finally, slowly, opened the door. The creaking wood of the door sent chills down his spine as he kept expecting the worst. He stepped into the dark room and noticed a suitcase that had their valuables tossed to the side of the bed. There were clothes scattered everywhere, personal effects tossed aside, and finally, there were some things missing. Hope bubbled up in his heart, and he felt a surge of energy. He ran out of the house and pulled the veil energies out into the air, forming a bubble as he took off into the air. He began flying to the city centre where the evacuation bunkers were supposed to be. He crashed down into the ground in front of the bunker's entrance as fast as he could, cratering the concrete before the door. He poured veil energy into his claws and condensed it before sticking him straight through the hermetic door like a hot knife through butter. He cut a circle large enough for him to fit through and ripped out the slab out of metal, tossing it to the side. A hail of bullets immediately pelted him, and he stood there in shock. The bullets stung, but did little else. The 3 guards emptied their mags into Sylvan's chest, and to their horror, their bullets had literally no effect. He looked inside and saw the shocked and horrified faces staring at him. Sylvain casually walked past the guards and started scanning the terrified crowd, looking for any sign of his family. He floats up over the masses to get a better look and finally spots his mother. "Mum, you are alive!" he yells, as he quickly descends towards her. His old mother started crying as she finally recognized him. "Sylvain, are you alright? What happened to you?" she said, as she ran in to hug him. Sylvain smiled as he hugged her back. She was so much smaller now that he had grown from the transformation. He had known she was fragile before, but now she looked so much more fragile. He felt 3 more people join in on the hug, and looked around to see that his dad, brother, and sister had all managed to survive. Sylvain felt tears well up in his eyes as he embraced his family. He pulled away for a second and looked at his brother. "Hey, Hal, where's the wife and kids? Are they safe too?" Hal wiped his tired eyes and frowned. I don't know. I was here for business and decided to visit Mum and Dad, but my family is still in Alamein," he said, as he trembled slightly. Sylvain ruffled his head fur and smiled at him. "I'm pretty sure that they are fine then. The humans should have made it there in time." Hal's eyes lit up and he started crying. "Thank you. I needed that." Sylvain looked to his sister, Sylvia, who gave him a half smile. "They are over there. You scared them pretty good with your entrance," she said, while pointing into the crowd. Sylvain smiled sheepishly. Yeah, I was worried about you guys. I've had a day." His mom pinched his ear and chuckled. "Obviously. Now tell us what happened. Why do you look so evil? How did you do that with magic?" Sylvain shrugged. "Crashed my ship in hell, and the god of death made me, him, and his wife his apostle," he stated matter-of-factly. His family just stared at him for a moment before his dad broke the silence. "What? What does that even mean? Where did you even come up with that story? What?" he said incredulously. Sylvain just shrugged and formed an image of Basilisk with Amaranth in the air around them. He then made the energies show his memory of the transformation, as well as a trip back to purity, showcasing Thanatos and the Spartans. Wasn't joking.